I'm switching to iPhone. Sort of. Just let me explain. My first smartphone was a Google Nexus 5, and I really loved that phone until one day it just got stuck in a boot loop and nothing could fix it. I then switched to the LG G3, and yet again, another boot loop which rendered the phone completely inoperable. This is good context because I was never an iPhone user. I put up with these quirks and continued to buy these devices whether they were Android phones, Windows phones, or even the BlackBerry Z10. That thing was trash. I went through a lot of phones before I decided to make the jump to iPhone. I got an iPhone 5S and then I decided to get the 6S Plus, and I loved that thing a lot. And if it wasn't for such a good experience that I had with that phone, I probably wouldn't have stuck with Apple for the years to come. Before I explain why this context is important, a like and a sub to the channel goes a really long way and helps me out a ton. So if you could just do that, it only takes 1 second, I would really appreciate it. Basically, since the iPhone 6S, I've upgraded iPhones every single year. I had the iPhone 7, the iPhone 10, the XS Max, the iPhone 11 Pro, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and then the iPhone 13 Pro. So when it comes to Apple devices, I've always been really fond of them. However, I started to lose interest with the iPhone in the 13 series, and I made the switch to the Galaxy Z Fold 3. My experience with that phone wasn't that great. The battery life and the durability was a huge concern for me, so I ended up going to the phone that I was comfortable with. I went back to iPhone. It wasn't really until the S22 Ultra where I was completely enamored with Android devices. In fact, this channel actually wouldn't be anywhere near where it is today if it wasn't for that phone. I made several videos about it and I loved it so much, and it's what made all of you guys interested in these videos. And that phone is what ultimately led me to trying out other Android devices. Most recently, the Z Fold 4. I don't have a single negative thing to say about the Z Fold 4. In fact, it's the phone that's been living in my pocket ever since it released. It's just been one of the most novel, coolest devices that I've ever used, and it's been very instrumental in my day-to-day. It's seriously been a really big tool for me in my life, and it's a device that I will always have a special place in my heart for. However, I picked up an iPhone 14 Pro Max, and the reason I did is because I wanted to give this phone a fair second chance. My impressions with the iPhone 14 non-Pro were terrible. Serious bugs, reception issues, a faulty earpiece speaker, and the battery life was just terrible. Literally everything about that phone went wrong for me, and it left a seriously bad taste in my mouth when it came to Apple. That being said, this phone, nearly 2 months after release, couldn't be any further from what I had experienced on the 14 Pro. In fact, aside from the Z Fold 4, I would consider this to be one of my favorite phones that's released this year. Though, here's the thing, I have a different mindset when it comes to this phone. And it's one that I know a lot of others in the tech community and this YouTube space share as well. When it comes to social media, it's very hard to keep an Android device like the S22 Ultra or the Z Fold 4 as your daily driver when it comes to making content. In fact, when it comes to the content that I produce, I actually feel like I'm somewhat limited by an Android device. For me, it's very important to have a really good and reliable camera when it comes to video, for these YouTube videos, YouTube Shorts, or TikToks. Things like making TikToks and YouTube Shorts on an Android phone is just not convenient. In fact, I've actually been forced to use my A7C, which is the camera that I'm recording on right now, and it takes a lot of setup, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. You can imagine just how inconvenient that may be when just trying to film something short. That's the whole point. Making sure the camera is charged, grabbing a light, making sure my SD card is cleared, grabbing a tripod, and using a wireless lav mic. This has actually been a huge hassle for me, and it's honestly limited me creatively. The extra work and the thought process that goes into making short-based content literally cost me a couple of hours. And the reason I have to do all this is because apps like TikTok and YouTube, despite being a Google-owned platform, just don't support the native camera integration with an Android phone. So not only do you lose a lot of detail in the image, but you also risk your audio being desynced, and it's just not very workable. And if I shoot with the native camera on the phone, I can't edit that content within YouTube Shorts or TikTok. So it's just a whole frustrating process that I've had to deal with. And so this is the video of the front-facing camera on the iPhone 14 Pro, and I actually think it looks really good. When I need to just record something while I'm on the go, or say I don't have my camera on me and I need to film something important, I know that this is a camera that I can trust. And this quality is even using the most compatible file, which is HVEC, and not the most efficient, which is what the iPhone actually shoots on. So this video quality looks pretty good, and this isn't even the format that's supposed to look that good. Another thing is, I own an Apple Watch Ultra, and I didn't buy this to be an Apple shill or to flex on everyone that I know. I actually bought this for a pretty good but boring reason. I have dealt with a lot of health concerns recently to the point where I'm unable to work my job. And the Apple Watch Ultra is the most accurate and reliable watch that I've used when it comes to heart rate tracking, sleep tracking, and fall detection. Fall detection is very important to me because God knows when and if another seizure is going to happen. So I would like to know that my fiance, my mom, and emergency services know about this in case I hit my head or just am not in a good spot when the seizure happens. Because, and I know this is going to sound extreme, but my first seizure, I nearly died. Saying that with a smile is kind of weird, but it's true. And when testing out the Galaxy Watch 4 and 5, I was never able to trigger the fall detection, which is something that I actually care about. I'm home alone now for most of the days, and the last thing I want is to be without help when I actually need it. Tie that in with the fact that this watch alone has taught me that I need to see a cardiologist because sometimes my heart rate dips down to the 40s. Tie this all in with the fact that I already own AirPods, I have an M2 MacBook Air, and I have a couple of AirTags to keep track of my wallet and my keys. Having an iPhone at the center of my life outside of the YouTube channel actually makes my life much easier. But there's one thing that I want you all to understand because it's actually really important to me. I'm not leaving Android, nor is this even a goodbye to the Fold 4. Pretty much every flagship device that comes out will be on this channel. It doesn't matter if it's an Android phone, an iPhone, or hell, if Windows Phone comes back, it'll be here. And I will still be doing these reviews unbiased, unpaid, and without a contract from any of these companies. It's not that I think the iPhone 14 Pro Max is the best phone that I've ever used, and that's why it's going in my pocket, because there are some things that I genuinely do hate about this phone. I'm not a fan of iOS anymore, and now that I've been introduced to One UI and other Android skins, it just feels like there's something always missing, and it's really boring. In fact, and I know this sounds stupid, but the other day I tried changing my icons on my iPhone before I remembered you can't unless you go through a crazy workaround creating app shortcuts, which is just annoying. Android has taught me what a mobile operating system should feel like, and I know I use this analogy a lot, but Android works around me, whereas with iOS, I have to work around it, and I don't like that. I like to call myself a tech enthusiast, or at least someone that is really passionate about tech, so being locked into Apple's walled garden is not something that I'm a huge fan of. And to be clear, this isn't a debate. I love Android, I will always be using Android, but the phone that will have my main phone number with my beefy data plan will be this iPhone. And circling back to the Galaxy Watch, there's no doubt that it's a great watch. I know that there's a lot of people in the community that really vouch for it, and honestly, if it wasn't for my niche use case, I would probably be using one. So take this how you please. I know either way it's going to upset some people, but I just like to be transparent and honest on this channel because I value that, and I know that as a viewer, that's something that I look for in creators as well. So thank you all for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like down below, subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.